Hey there, welcome back to TomGirl. This is episode 31. We're with Mollie Ranize, and she is an interior designer. Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
And this is one of Mollie's favorite songs. Yeah!
Oh, I did try to get him to come to the wedding. I'll talk about that later.
We have a wonderful wedding story about this, so yeah, you have to stay tuned for the whole interview till you get that part, though. Hey, Mollie, welcome. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell everybody real quick where they can follow you at on social media.
All social media is at Dmar Interiors, so it's DMAR Interiors with an S at the end.
All right. Well, I've known you for so long, and it's so fun to have watched your business grow too. So I'm very excited to talk to you tonight about how you've grown that business. But let's first start out in the beginning. How did you get interested in interior design?
This is always a funny question for me because my company is just about 12 years old, so I'm to the point where I get asked that quite a bit now. The weird thing for me is that a lot of interior designers, when you ask them at this point in their career why they did it, it's because they grew up just dreaming about it and redecorating their room, and that could not be further from the truth for me. I did have a really creative mom who encouraged me to do a lot of crafts and things, stained glass and quilting and stuff like that, but really it came down to knowing I had to go to college and picking a career. Mm-hmm. And I felt like I was too young and I didn't know, so I kind of did process of elimination, mm-hmm. which sounds pretty lame, but it was down to interior design and architecture, and architecture seemed like just too much responsibility, quite frankly, with structures and safety. So interior design it was, and I realized through the college program that I was applying for scholarships and doing contests and things, and I was winning. So I thought there must be something to this, and so I kind of stuck to it, and I'm really thankful that I did and that I kind of found it by happenstance because I do really love it.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it sounds lame at all. I think it's actually really hard for kids to go to school and then you're supposed to decide, right. Like you have a semester or 1 year of general studies, right. But then it's like, boom, pick what your course is for the next 4 years or
Well,
however.
Unfortunately, we didn't even get that because when you pick, it was an architecture school that I went to. So when you picked interior design, architecture, or landscape design, you had to start your core classes immediately.
Oh, wow.
So I had no time. So we all took the same studio classes. We started on these intense projects right away. And then you got into the process for a year and a half. And then you had to compete to get into the interior design program. So it was really, really interesting. I did get in. My roommate didn't. She went to an awesome concert the night before. The pinup, which I missed, but I finished college.
But you got your career, instead.
So there's that.
And now you're in LA and you could go to all kinds of concerts.
Great.
Awesome. What were some things that, since maybe you weren't sure, what did you discover along the way that things that you started to be interested in? And
well, I realized there's just certain things that I'm never going to be a big fan of, mainly, and I do enjoy the theory of math, I guess, which does come into play here, scale and proportion. I realize there's also certain things I'm not that good at, like history, and actually, we did have to study art, but it's not something that necessarily comes easy to me. English, I'm fine at. It's my only language, but I wouldn't say I've mastered it. In the program, though, I started learning this skill set where you had to fine-tune your art. And I was starting at ground zero. I didn't know how to draw, and we really learned how to draw everything, 2-dimensionally, 3-dimensionally, and start understanding how space is formed from nothing, and not to think about things as a door or a wall, and things became thresholds and moments and experiences. So it really kind of opened my mind and realized, this is amazing. I'm not going to get a degree as a decorator. I'm really, really a legitimate designer. So that was exciting.
And then when you finished, did you work for a company, or did you start out on your own, or what was your process?
I did do a couple internships in San Francisco while I was in school, and it was invaluable. getting out of your comfort zone, getting into an office setting that you're totally out of your element, cannot advise it high. You know, it was amazing. But you know, unfortunately, once I graduated, I didn't have a plan. I knew that I didn't want to stay in Florida. I went to the University of Florida. I knew I didn't want to stay there because the design is super conservative, or at the time it was. The idea of people with money was really unfortunate. A lot of, you know, large seascapes and, and sculptures and things, and it wasn't... It didn't do anything for me. So I was actually born in Santa Monica, but moved away very young. So I packed a suitcase with a rented apartment that I found right before I graduated here in LA. Paid for it for 2 months with the last of my money, and got here and thought, you know, I'll figure it out. And it was such a joke. I had the hardest time even getting a waitressing job because every restaurant I walked into, it was Italian. Okay, great. Do you speak Italian? No, I don't. A Greek restaurant. Do you speak Greek? No, I don't. Do you speak French? No, but I know how to serve a table. Right. I can clean it up. So eventually I got a job at an Italian restaurant. And I just started talking to everyone. Through that process, I met someone who was looking for an interior design assistant, and that lady changed my life. No joke. She is a powerhouse. And I didn't work there all that long, but I worked there long enough to know that this is it. This is how I want to do it. And she had figured so many things out, and she was doing things so differently than I had ever imagined possibly being able to do things, that I absorbed as much as I possibly could. And I thought, I'm going to do this.
Like, what were some of those things that you
know, she worked for very, very high-end clientele. The houses were huge. They were so tastefully done. I mean, she thought about every single detail. She thought about the user. She worked with the greatest architects, the greatest contractors, but nothing was safe. Everything was interesting and layered to a point that I didn't know how she did it, and made it look spectacular and not like a hot mess, you know?
Yeah.
And she just had the right components. She had the right people around her, people that helped with bookkeeping, the right filing system, the right process for gathering inspiration. And this was in 2003, so this was kind of before Instagram and, you know, Pinterest and all of these things that have made things a lot more accessible. So it was really inspiring. I mean, it was hard because her expectations were really high, but it was a game changer.
And then, so that from there, did you start your own after that? Or
from there, I had one more interesting experience, which was, at the time, there was a show called like Hotspot or something like that on E! And I was like, yes, I'm in LA. I'm going to be the LA designer. And he was a designer that was working on all of the hottest hotels and restaurants. And they didn't want another free intern. And I was like, I'm just going to come here and do things for you. I'm going to organize your library. And they were like, no, you're not. Get out of here. And I was like, no, just let me, just give me 3 days. If you don't like how the library looks, I'll leave. And they're like, okay, enough. So I did it, and they're like, you're staying. This is great. So
that's a great story. So you reached out to them,
absolutely.
And you just like, I'm going to make myself, you're going to use me for the...
Absolutely.
I love it. See, I love stories. We always talk about that here, that like, just ask for what you want, or just, you know, don't wait for like, oh, I got to sign up to try to be an intern or whatever. Just put it out there.
1,000%.
That's great.
And I knew, I was like, I don't know what it is about this place, but I want to know what they know, and I want to see it, and I want to feel it, and I want to be there. So I just would not let them say no. So I did that, and what I learned was, it was awful. And it wasn't the design that was awful, and it wasn't the people that was awful. It was the business structure, and it was enough to make me sick, like physically sick. And so I gathered as much as I possibly could, and I realized, this isn't valuable, and I'm never going to run my business like this. And they're not in business anymore. But everybody that I worked with was hyper talented and now all run their own design firms and are wildly successful. So good.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I told myself, if I can get a contract signed, I'm just going to jump in. And I got two at the same time, a commercial project and a residential, and I haven't looked back.
That's great. You were telling me some fun stories about coming up with your the name of your company. So
yeah, so I have an interesting name. It's actually my grandmother's name, first, middle, and last name. So it's Mollie Ranize. And no one ever knows how to say Ranize or spell it or anything, which I don't blame them because it is weird and it's just our family. And so there's nothing really like it. So I didn't really want to have everyone butcher that on a day-to-day basis. And my name is Mollie, and it just sounds really sweet, and I'm not really. So using like Mollie Designs, it just sounds so cute. And my middle name is Ann, so then you throw in Mollie Ann, and it's just so...
I picture Southern with that, or like some sort, girly designs with that.
Yeah, and I just felt like I was going to just be giving the wrong impression. So I ended up with Dmar, which is design by Mollie Ranize. And my thought was, well, that's great. If I keep my name out of it, then it has the potential to grow into more than just design if at any point I wanted it to be more than that. So that's how we landed there.
We have some. Did you show the pictures yet, Anthony? Sorry, I wasn't looking at the screen. Not that one. Her design photos. Okay. Yeah, we have just a few. I pulled a few. There we go. Because I love your Instagram and I stalk you a lot on there, but just some great photos that you have of like work you've done.
This is a great commercial. Yeah, this is a great commercial project. These people are it's an animation company in Echo Park, and they're wildly talented. And their company was started out of a bedroom in an apartment, like a lot of small companies here, and they've grown into this hugely successful company. But this is their lobby and their command center, and it was just a graveyard of old furniture from dudes' apartments. And I was like, you guys need to look grown up. So we did some custom things, and then actually everything else was super affordable. We had a very strict budget, and they did a lot of sweat equity themselves, and it's incredible. It fits the warehouse that it's in.
Mm-hmm. Now this is something. So when
cute.
I saw one of the houses, we have a mutual friend, a voice of our guy, and I remember like loving. I've always been a bathroom girl
because
I think
with that. I know the bathroom.
We only had one bathroom growing up as a kid, and there was 4 of us always in there. So I think for some reason they used to joke when we go to restaurants, I would always go check out bathrooms. I just like to see them. And so you have one thing where you always make a really fun powder room in a house. Can you talk about that?
Well, again, I learned this from my very first powerhouse boss. Powder rooms can be the gem of a house. They don't necessarily have to take on the same personality as the rest of the house. It's kind of a moment where your guest can step away and they're going to remember that was the coolest little space. And it doesn't, it's not your personal bathroom that you're going to spend a ton of time in. And usually they don't have showers, so there's not humidity, so you can do wallpaper and have a little bit more fun. This was actually for Sephora here in Hollywood. They have a production company. So we wanted to do a little bit of a Hollywood glam thing. This is mainly the bathroom where the models kind of go in and prep before their shoots and things. So that's a fun one.
Yeah, I loved it.
Oh, this house is so good. Okay, so this is a CFO of a major company, and they moved from New York. So they're very East Coast and tailored, and her husband is English and has the greatest accent in the world. But they live in Newport Beach, so it needed to have kind of a casual vibe. So impeccable taste. So we did a lot of custom furniture, but specifically that table, which is to die for in person. And a bunch of different, just soft custom furnishings just to really finish the space. And also, when you walk in the front door, the first thing you see is that entry, the dining room, and then you see kind of on either side the billiards room and the family room. So it's all tied together and feels really good.
Kitchen?
Oh, this house is awesome. So one thing that I end up doing is fixing track homes a lot. So track homes are when a developer goes into an area and they have a few sets of plans and they just build a million of them. And they have slightly different colors. two areas in Los Angeles or in Orange County have very big developments that have very nice homes, and they all look the same, like a faux Tuscan villa. Calabasas is one of them. Coto de Casa is the other. They're both behind the gates. They're very pretty. They're safe and wonderful, clean. But they all lack a lot of personality. So this is one of them that we changed every single thing, basically. And so now, and the funny thing about these clients is he is Swedish and very, very sleek, modern aesthetic. She is more of traditional, lots of layers. So this was the house that they actually got engaged, merged families in, and we had to find a way to blend the two. So it's very, there's a lot of modern lines, but really, really subtle traditional details.
What are your tips for when you have clients like that where you're trying to
communication?
Yeah.
It's always communication, which you would think sounds easier than it is. But believe it or not, sometimes you meet people, these are clients I try not to take, where there's just animosity and hurdles in the relationship, and they may resent each other,
right.
Or one wants a designer and the other one doesn't. And I just, if everyone's not on the same page and excited about the project, design is a luxury. Like, enjoy it, have fun with it, love it. But that's the biggest key is communication, having everybody on the same page, having open dialogue, and also compromise. So there's certain things that matter more than others, and there's give and take.
Yeah, for sure. Any more in there, or was that a different kitchen?
This again is behind the gates in Coto de Casa, and it looked like kind of a faux Tuscan villa that had tried to be personalized with bold color everywhere. And so I have a tendency to strip out a lot of color and instead replace it with texture, because I think it lasts a lot longer, and also it gives you a base, like a palette that you can inject your own personal belongings and things in your story a lot easier. Like, I don't need to tell that story for you. You should tell it.
Any more? Yeah.
Oh, this one. Oh, this is again another. This is a different faux Tuscan villa. This house was uber traditional, and they went under major construction, and so they're entertainers. Always have people over. So this room was what should technically be a formal living room at the front of a house that would never get touched. But instead, we made it a lounge. So there's 4 swivel chairs around this table that can be a game table, huge TV, watch the games, and it's right by a custom wine rack that you can't see.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What are is that the last of the photos? Yeah, that's back to my mom now. So I know you talked a little bit about the texture. What would you say some of your other philosophies of design are?
It's taken a long time to figure out how to verbalize that, and I think that the reason why is with social media and this huge accessibility of imagery. You start to see so much of things that look so similar that my page, because I follow a lot of designers, starts to look like I'm just following one feed. And then you start to question yourself, why doesn't my stuff look like this? And if these are the things that are getting published, what's wrong with me? And then it's a very exciting process. What happens is all of the retailers start to carry those things for a couple of years. So what happens is you end up, it's almost impossible not to get on the bandwagon. So the biggest challenge for me as a designer is, how do I not emulate everything I see that's successful? So that's been a real struggle. And what I did was, I've always stayed true to myself. I've always tried to listen to the client, how they're going to use the house, things they like, things they don't like, and then really try to sometimes people see the trends and they want it, so you have to just there has to be a balance. But it's what I came down with is California modern interiors, because we are in California, so things can be a little bit more interesting. There can be a little bit more texture play than some places that need to be a little bit more buttoned up or follow a theme or trend or whatever. Also, I lean more towards a modern aesthetic. So more clean lines, which then led me to, which you're probably going to talk about somewhere, my 3T rule.
Yeah, that would be my next one.
and that, figuring that out, like putting my finger on exactly what it is that we do has helped make sure that with every project, with every client, we're following our mission statement. And so the 3 T's are tailored, tasteful, and timeless. So every single time you look at any of our photos, that's what you should see. That's what you should feel when you go in any of them. So tailored means that you're not going to have a lot of extra layers for the sake of having fluff and foof, and you're not going to see a lot of really overly feminine or decorated anything, like no winter treatments that are swoopy or puddly. Timeless is because I try not to follow the trends. Brass has made a huge resurgence, and I've been doing brass now for 6 years. I get it. It's pretty. It's nice to have a new metal finish, but I try not to get totally on any bandwagon that's happening. And tasteful. I mean, that seems self-explanatory, but then if you look out in magazines and things like, yeah. I mean, I guess I shouldn't judge my peers, but like sometimes there's stuff that I don't really think is that tasteful. So that's our underlying kind of core system.
Yeah, I think I like you're totally my taste. I love everything you do because it is clean and it is modern. But I like even like with the powder rooms, everything, even though it's it all has a little bit of a flair to it. It's like,
right.
In bedrooms you'll sometimes put texture on the wallpaper, like just behind the bed or something. Like there's always some little thing that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Like it just makes the room interesting, but like something that I know 10 years from now, like you wouldn't be like, oh, why did I do that to that wall? Or why did, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like it's just, but it's enough to make it feel like
special.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of the goal. And, I also try to be respectful and wise of people's budgets, and not just when we're working together, but for the life cycle of the house. So I know there's certain things that people will want, but I have to be responsible, and I can't let people do certain things because I know you're going to tire of it. And that means that I haven't done my job if you have to rip out your backsplash in 7 years when the trends change and no one likes blue anymore or whatever, So yeah, it's about thinking about the long term too.
And then I don't want you to give away your secrets, but talk more about the team that you use as well too. Like if there's certain places you go to for, carpets, or just what it takes to build this business of yours.
I mean, I'll be honest. My team is whoever makes my life easier, because typically we're working on 15 projects at a time that are all huge scale, that are far away. And so we have to do a lot of things digitally. And thank goodness things have developed and become a lot more convenient for that. So typically anyone that has a great website is the first start, because I can start sourcing and have that relationship with a vendor who will send me samples or drop them off, or I can pick them up. And there's already kind of a dialogue. Like I've always said, I'm not the designer that will hold your hand and go shopping and to lunch with you. I don't have the time. But also, that sounds nice, though. I think I did it all wrong, actually. That sounds great.
Yeah. Go to the spa. Yeah. Maybe let's talk about ideas.
Rosé or something all day. What?
Yeah.
I haven't lived like that. I'm rethinking things. So it's really about trying to maximize how much I can get done. So same things. If it's a contractor that makes my life easy and doesn't fight me at every single turn, that's great. If it's a supplier, if it's really anyone. Yeah, it's just I try to work with people that that understand the flow and the timing and urgency. A lot of people don't understand urgency. So,
do you personally have like a dream like type of house that is like your style? You know, like some people like mid-century modern, something like a ranch. Do you have like one that you?
I mean, I tell every client that's behind the gates, as soon as we get done, please get a beach house. Like, let's just do a beach house or a mountain house or someplace where I can come visit, you know? But honestly, like a modern beach house that we can furnish not so modern. That sounds ideal.
Cozy. All right. Can you talk about some of, do you have a question, Anthony? Nope, sorry. Some of the maybe struggles or lessons, things that you've learned starting this business on your own. And
yes. So I can, without a doubt, say that the biggest challenge that I've had is not knowing a thing about finances. Finances, and also I think it's insane that you can get any degree without having to minor in some form of business. You know, it's crazy. Just basic things that I've had to figure out by trial and error. It's insane. So we do this thing where we have to pay sales tax, and it is the most complicated thing on earth. You would not think it is, but based on where the products are being delivered, you have to charge sales tax at that rate. But then it's crazy, and then but we don't pay it when we buy things, so we have to just keep track of it and do it once a month. Anyways, stuff like that drives me crazy. Also, the other biggest challenge that I've had is realizing that I'm not for everyone. And everyone's not for me. And that's really hard, because as a business owner, you want to say yes, and money's great, and you want to be able to change things and fix things. But you just can't. You can't do it all. Personality is a big determining factor in whether or not I take a project, because I mean, think about your dating life, right? Like, can you imagine if I was like, okay, so you know, everyone that you went on that first date with, I need you to date them for about a year and a half, and have your finances involved, and do it with smile. It's crazy, right? So realizing that you can't take it personally when it doesn't work out. That's been a struggle. And what do
you do if somebody does have completely different like taste than you, right? And so say like maybe what they wanted, or what they're like, what they're gonna look for is stuff that you normally would think, you know, not to judge, but like, oh, that's ugly, or I would never do that. Can you still like go and completely do their house in like kind of the ugly version that they want, that you know like is just their different taste? Make them happy?
I mean, I've tried. I have tried everything, but typically, if you start with a great divide, it's very difficult to make up. I was just thinking, when I was getting ready to come here, I was thinking about a house in Santa Barbara that we did a full remodel on. And the house looked stunning. It was a hot mess, and it turned out so beautifully. And when we got to the furniture, I just realized you know them. When we got to the furniture, they were sending me images of things that I was like, I don't even know where to buy that. And so they didn't use me for that phase. And it was, you know, a tough pill to swallow, because I still was showing up to the site to deal with construction issues and seeing the other designer there. And it's like, ooh. But, you know, big girl pants, it's a business, it's not personal, and, you know, good. I want them to be happy with their house. So that's that. And then, you know, sometimes people are crazy, and sometimes I'm crazy. And so you can't win them all.
I think it would have to be really hard, just because everybody does have their different styles, and they're different. So I think it would be hard to
not just styles. Like, think about every single person was raised like through childhood, has become an adult. Everything that's happened to them until the day that you meet them. Like, I can't affect any of that, you know. And so sometimes it's not even about what I'm showing them.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I could see that for sure. Well, and also those kind of things too, like those decisions it gets when you're just like, you know, because for me sometimes too, it's so hard to see things until I see it, you know, and then like you're done, and then you're like, oh no, I didn't like that.
Oh, I can't tell you the number of times I've installed something that you've seen a drawing, a sample. I've measured it out in your space, and then it arrives, and it's like, I thought it was going to be bigger. I'm like, I don't know I didn't.
Yeah. I tried to show you.
Yeah. So yeah, it's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. Design is weird. I mean, I guess it wouldn't be as weird if it wasn't my business, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm going to tell you exactly why it's the right size.
Yeah. Got it. All right. Well, let's talk about, you've been on some television shows. So you had House Hunter Renovations, Flip or Flop, and another
House
one.
Crashers.
House Crashers. Yeah. Tell me about those experiences.
TV's great. I love TV because typically it's a faster pace, real life project. Everything that we do on any of those shows, it's real. House Hunter's Renovation is the closest to reality because construction dictates the filming, not the reverse. So I don't know how they do it. That must be the worst production job on earth because you're really at the mercy of what happens as it unfolds. And you're not always going to be able to film when you want to film. And a lot of stuff can go wrong. For instance, I couldn't be on the job site at the same time as one of the contractors because I don't think he knew how to read drawings, and I didn't have a lot of patience for him. Apparently, I also remind him of his ex-wife, which seems wildly inappropriate for me to know. But House Crashers, so sadly, they're not filming anymore. But that show is incredible because we would do things that are physically impossible. For instance, renovate a kitchen in 3 days. And I'm not, they're not exaggerating. That's not TV. We would literally have 30 people in a kitchen renovating it in 3 days. Now, the 3 days could be really long days, and they could finish at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m., but the kitchen would be remodeled, and it would look exceptional. And I was brought in many years ago to do an episode, and the production crew and host were the most incredible, just the nicest, the most welcoming, the most professional, the most organized. And it was really whatever the designer wants, the designer gets. And I was like, I like that. So, and also with a lot of the TV stuff, it's a surprise for the homeowners. And that's not something I get to typically do in real life. And so that's fun. You know, that's nice to be able to give someone that. And typically they don't have to pay for it. So that's nice too for them. Flip or Flop was a whole different situation. But
how was that one?
That one
doesn't sound like a good
a bit more of a hot mess. And I was on the very first episode of the very first season of that show. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, these people have no idea what they're doing, like at all. This is going to be wildly disastrous. And the show is a hit. I don't know what I'm talking about because they are wildly successful. It's alarming and good for them. So, and they hired me to do off-camera design stuff for them afterwards. So, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I will say that I do miss some of the crew, and just the energy. I don't get that in day-to-day projects. The contractor, I usually show up and here she is to make changes and be difficult and expensive. And, whereas they're like, oh, thank God, we're going to have some answers. Come over, let's do this. So, yeah.
If HGTV came to you and they said, Mollie, we want you to have your own show. What kind of show would you want? And, what would you name it? What would you want to have happen on that show?
I've pitched some shows. None of them have taken, obviously.
Keep pitching.
But I would love to do something with Josh Temple. He's the host from House Crashers, and he just has such a great energy. He's ridiculously talented. He's the hardest worker I know. I've heard a lot about other HGTV designers, and he could not be any different. I mean, could not be any more. I mean, he's just exceptional. He really is working 100% of the time. He's funny, and he's just great. So, I mean, the big dream is something. Maybe I can do something with him one day. We'll see.
You can pair up and do beach houses
all
along the coast of Malibu.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah,
I would totally watch that. For sure.
California Modern Interiors.
Exactly. All right, let's take a tiny break and do our TomGirl of the week this week, with something we like to do here every week. So this one this week just goes out to my dear old mom. So she's the one on the right, and her name is actually Cheyenne Autumn. She changed her name as she got older, and she's just the whole reason this show exists is because she raised me to be, at the time, such a tomboy, and just to really is such a strong believer in women's rights, and just has always pushed me to know that I can go after whatever I want. And she's just such a great leader. And it was just her 69th birthday this week, so of course she got a lot of sick jokes from all of us about that as well. So
I like that she's out there marching with a pink hat on.
Yeah.
Good
So
for
then
her.
the lady in the middle is her best friend, Milta. So both Milta kind of raised me as well. So they were best friends. They were teachers together in Omaha, Nebraska, Bellevue, Nebraska. Now they live in Phoenix. And then Milta has a daughter my age, and we're 2 months apart, best friends for life. But anyway, that was them marching this past
great.
weekend in Phoenix.
I love it.
So yeah. So thanks, Mom. All right. So back to you. Okay. One of the things we like to talk about here, too, is adventure. So I pulled a few pictures from your Instagram. I want to see if you talk about a couple of your adventures. So Greece, you said this is one of your...
So, this was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. We went to Santorini for our honeymoon, and we spent 10 days, and we didn't leave the island. And it was the best. It was so good because it's such a small island that it really felt like a community because, for instance, the airport, I don't know if you remember Wings, that show.
I
Okay,
love that show.
The airport was the size of this table. And the same guy checks everyone in and checks everyone out. And every time we called for a car, it was Anthony. And literally, I don't know if I've been anywhere where people have been nicer to me. It was kind of alarming, if we're coming from LA where people are a little standoffish and, kind of junky sometimes on purpose. It was incredible. It's beautiful, obviously. And the weather was great and just the nicest people. But, going to places like this, you see the architecture and you're like, why isn't everything white? I want every neighborhood to just paint their house white.
That's what comes into mind every time you think of Greece. All I think about is that white against the
Yes.
blue water, just like the pictures you took.
See?
Like, it's just the white and the blue.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's really amazing.
So this one was...
So this is my first time in Paris, which is weird, I waited till I was old. But again, the architecture, I always thought, everybody goes to Paris. Why do I need to go to Paris? Okay. Because everybody needs to go to Paris. It's incredible. The architecture is so tasteful and so beautiful. And just a restrained color palette and organized gardens everywhere. It's just, if you like wine, they let you drink wine, like outside. It's so
just walking
great.
around on the street?
Well, like in the gardens, I don't,
gosh, good.
I try to be, a little pulled together.
Not in a red Solo cup down the street?
I wouldn't put it past me. But everywhere, but see, these trips could not be more different because Paris, you have to see everything. So every day is an itinerary. Whereas Santorini, you can just wake up and just wander, get something to eat. That's your day. Wait for the sunset.
I could handle that day. Is there one more in there or not? Can't remember. Yeah. Yeah, because this was Switzerland.
So
right?
Switzerland, yeah, Switzerland is incredible. So I went to Switzerland because in college, our senior year, there was a study abroad trip at the very end, and I remember it was going to cost the same amount as my school loans already were, and so I didn't go. But they went to this place called Balls, and it's really difficult to get to, and it's in the middle of nowhere. But they have these thermal spas that are so modern, built out of this monolithic gray stone from the surrounding mountains in the Alps, and bananas. Just incredible. And again, like the service, and I ended up like getting sick in Paris. And by the time I got there, they were like, "We've got this great doctor you can see," and he was like in a gas station, but he was the nicest man. Everything was like little and quaint, and that was Lucerne. It was beautiful, like a storybook.
Was there any place that you visited that you've brought back, like some design, or inspired you for some sort of design?
I feel like everywhere I go, it kind of goes back to the following the trends, not following the trends. I don't like to emulate things, but everywhere I've gone, I feel like I have a greater perspective of the design world in general. You know, I realize it's not just what's on my Instagram feed. It's not just what other designers in LA are doing, and that things that were done before the internet are so much more incredible than things are after. You know, so it kind of, if anything, it's a motivator that it's really just about, I love historical relevance and architectural details and respecting the buildings. And that's one thing that I think California is missing, is more historical buildings. We have some great Spanish architecture, but man, if I could get my hands on some of those, you know, Parisian or Swiss architecture, I would be in heaven.
Whenever you look at some of the stuff, like most of us, I've just looked at it in books, but the place I haven't, just the attention, the detail.
Yeah,
like I think about
absolutely.
what happens, you know, in Italy and those types of places.
Well, and
of all
also
those buildings.
colors and materials, for the most part, are sourced locally. You know, so you kind of end up with a restrained palette, which I love and respect, because they were using what was available to them. So, I think I was just born at the wrong time.
I think you're the right time, because I think your stuff is amazing for right now. Speaking of that, let's talk. Do you have any tips of design for people out there maybe designing their own homes for 2018?
You know, one of my big tips is to always assemble the right team, because if you've never done it before, it is overwhelming and there are a lot of steps and you can waste money really quickly. So do your research. Always put together a style guide, whether it's Pinterest or actual magazines, or House, or any of these things. You can even make collections on your Instagram, but really try to hone in on where you're going, and then hire the right people. It's really worth the money. If you feel like you need that designer to push you a little bit further or to help you with the details, I feel like it'll end up saving you money. I mean, you don't hire a designer to save money, let's be honest, but can keep you from wasting money. Interview contractors, for sure get multiple bids, read reviews, and just don't cut corners. That I always say, don't cut corners on things that you're going to have to redo later, because you're going to spend money twice. So, and you know, sometimes you don't know what those are until you talk to somebody who does it day in and day out.
Okay, great. And then lastly, before we leave, advice for maybe younger girls, boys out there who want to go into interior designer things.
I couldn't be more thankful that I went to an accredited school for design. And mainly, it trained me to think, to appreciate space and to understand it and to understand the components that go together. I didn't learn how to decorate at all. I didn't matter what colors looked like. That was not the point of the training. So, but I learned how to do AutoCAD so I can do scaled drawings, which, believe it or not, there's like a lot of designers working in this town that don't scale things. I have no idea how they're buying things that fit. So learn the important skills, like learn whatever programs you need to learn, whether it's Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever, so that you can take the idea that's in your head and give it to someone in a very organized fashion so that it's useful, so that they can hand it to a contractor, or they can take it shopping, or you can do those things for them, so that there's a clear, again, goes back to communication, so that you can communicate your ideas. I think magazines are great. I think shopping is great. But I really think you need to know core skills to be able to be good. And also work with people, work for people, volunteer on charity makeovers, do whatever you can to really get your hands dirty, because that's where you'll see, like I did, what works and what doesn't work for you. And, you know, the corporate structure is really good for some people. I would kill myself if I had to go to a cubicle. But some people like that structure, and to know that they have a 401k and their benefits and all that sounds great. Or, you know, you work 80 hours for yourself, so you don't have to work 40 hours for someone else. So, but all of those things you kind of learn by doing, and it's more, design is really more than just beautiful things. It's really about being organized, communication, talking about expectations, managing budgets. Man, you mess up a budget, and clients aren't happy, and they don't even care what the design looks like. So, so yeah, I think it's just about being real about what it is, because realistically, I would say it's like 20% creative and 80% follow through. Not always what some people think when they go into design, but still worth it. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Those are great tips for everybody. And again, like she said earlier, just ask too. If there's not that, just tell like you did to the first TV show.
Yeah,
tell them you're going to have me for 3 days, so don't be afraid to go and ask for things. So,
definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. This is so great. And some year I'm going to get a house out here, and I'm calling you. Dang it.
I know. I'm ready. Start your Pinterest now.
Oh, it started. Trust me.
Perfect. I'll have my wallpapers ready for you.
Perfect. Yeah. I keep looking. I'm like, nope, I need a powder room, because she's got to do my powder room.
Yeah. We'll get you one. We'll get you hooked up.
All right. So tell everybody again where they can follow you and find your website and all.
Yeah, any social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, it's at Dmar Interiors. So it's DMAR Interiors with an S. And my website is also dmarinteriors.com. So that's it.
Oh, and then you also said you were willing to, if young designers had questions or something, you're open for them to email you.
Totally.
Or
reach out to me. I've done coffee. I've done sit downs and talked about things that are really important. At the initial stages of thinking about being a designer, but also when people have just jumped in and then realize like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you please talk to me? So yeah, I'm girl power. Let's do it.
That's great. Woohoo! All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. We will see you here again next week. Have a great week, everybody.
Thank you.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
On another show,
The views expressed herein are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.